Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. It's Laura May from Hot for Success, and I'm super excited to talk with Kerrin Black today. And before we jump in, I want to remind you all that Hot for Success is all about the philosophy that we all have a burning desire, a goal inside of us. It's unique to us, an intense, passionate, and unwavering craving or motivation to achieve a specific goal or dream. So, Earl Nightingale refers to this as a worthy ideal. And so today, when we dive in with the infamous Kerrin Black, we will discuss the quote, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So Kerrin, yay!
Thank you
I'm
so much for
so
having me.
excited, so excited that you're here. And Kerrin and I have been working together probably for about 3 months now, and it's been such a pleasure to be a part of her interactions with the world and see all the different neat connections that she has. So I'm so excited that we have the time today to talk about what she's doing and what lights her up and focus on her success and what she's hot for. So, Kerrin, the first question today is, what is your worthy ideal?
Sure, my worthy ideal, I think it's really shifted over the last few months, but I would say just having, I think you and I've discussed this a few times, but I feel like it's having the freedom and the independence to do what you want to do. So for me, that's like being able to work and travel and just have the freedom and not be tied to one specific place. Because also I was recently asked about my definition of success, and I think some people have a very materialistic perspective. So this ties back into what you're asking is, you know I understand like everybody needs security and to feel stable. But at the same time, it's like even if you own a house, and there's very few people that own like their own house or their own place outright. So for me, I feel like you're still trapped in some level of institution because you're owing people money or the banks or car payments, things like that. So for me, the real true definition is just being free, being able to not have debts and accumulations of things. And I feel like it's also more the freedom to travel and experience places and spaces and new cultures. So I don't know. That for me is what it is.
And can you enlighten us on a recent adventure you've had with the freedom that you have? Where were you last?
In Switzerland
In
for over
Switzerland.
a month. So
Ah, amazing, amazing.
amazing. And again, for me, it's also because you build the relationships, professional relationships, and friendships with people. And because of that, I have been able to go and stay in different places and experience different cultures. So like the family that I was looking after, their pets and their home, they're actually from Canada, but work in Switzerland. So yeah, I mean, just different experiencing like the steepest aerial cable car in the world, you know.
Wow,
Yeah. And
incredible.
just, and experiencing going into a bunker, because in Switzerland they have a lot of bunkers for protection of wars or whatever. So and just going and experiencing those things and swimming in the lake every day and or as close to possible as every day. But yeah, just running and just a change of scenery. And I think that's also another thing, because for me personally, I get bored very quickly. So I need to switch it up.
And the work that you do, so I'd love to move into that because I know your success is fueled. It sounds like what I'm hearing you say is your success is fueled by the work that you do, and it gives you that opportunity, that freedom, right? And so, what is the work that you do, and what is fueling that freedom? What kinds of adventures do you have through the work that you offer in the world?
Well, to give context, I do PR and publicity, which you know, but the audience may not know. So, for me, it's always been the power of storytelling. So, for example, if I go back to when I first started, I actually didn't train or study in PR, publicity, or journalism. I ended up, because I was trying to raise money for my nonprofit at the time in South Africa, I actually ended up by default doing a South African artist who was living in New York at the time. And I actually ended up doing his PR by pure default for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of how it transpired into what it was, and what it is. So yeah, I think I realized back then, because you only really hear people maybe in the last 2-3 years really referencing to the power of storytelling. And like I say to people, it's not about selling your product. It's about telling the story, which sells, which ultimately is the catalyst to the other parts of what you're doing. Because I think some people have I don't know, like a skewed perception that PR and publicity people are their salespeople, and that's not actually the case. We're there to tell the story. If you have a product and you have a sales team, then the sales team should be selling. So, and actually somebody brought this point up to me the other day, because I do feel like there's a lot of founders and a lot of people that have this perception that it's the responsibility of the PR and publicity agent to sell their products. And it's like, well, actually, no. We're here because I think also people think, oh, if I'm like on the cover of Vogue, or I'm on the cover of some publication, or I feature on some big network show, that suddenly it's going to catapult from 0 to 100. And it's like, no, the PR and publicity is creating awareness to an audience that perhaps never even knew about your product or about what you do. And I really realized right in the beginning of when I was doing the PR for this particular artist, and building my network at that period of time. I mean, I'm always ongoingly building my network, but at that time, I just realized it was actually the power of storytelling behind it that really, and we see it because, whether you reference to, well-known names like Richard Branson or Sarah Blakely, or, any of these, famous entrepreneurs or successful entrepreneurs, it's always the same. It's not about the product, it's about the story.
And folks really connect to story. Why? I mean, I have a sense of why, but I'd love to hear why you think we connect so well with a person's story and that helps build their network.
Well, I think it's twofold. I think on one side, it's about being relatable, right? So, and showing people what's possible, because I think that's the key, is just showing people that it is possible, to succeed. And also where I feel I've done it differently, which maybe is a harder route, or more challenging, but there's so many people that are chasing after the successful billionaires and millionaires to interview them, and there's nothing wrong with it. But for the majority of people, they cannot relate to that because it is not even in the realm of their comprehension. And it doesn't mean that they don't want to aspire to make the world better and to be successful on some level, whatever level that may be. Obviously, that is purely dependent on the individual. But I feel like, I have met so many people that are so successful or have been phenomenal in their businesses, or raising capital for other projects or whatever. And at the end of the day, yes, they might not have 50,000 Instagram followers, and they might not have, a gazillion likes or comments, but the reality behind it, in my opinion, is that those are the people that actually carry the weight. Because once you get to an Elon Musk level, or some of these other individuals, it's hard for people to even relate to that, as I've said before. So for me personally, I feel like that's part of the reason I started my own podcast too, because I just got frustrated. And even now you see it with the top podcasters, and I'm kudos to them. They're doing well, whatever, but it's the same people interviewing each other all the time. There's no new content. It's frustrating for people. And then to be able to say to people, listen, I've got somebody that's seriously influential. They've built, a massively successful business. They may, like I said, may not have the Instagram or social media following, but they are a good connection point. And if people actually use their heads and realized, oh, this is actually a good connection and a good person to be in contact with, that that extends into their network. But there's very few people that understand it, like
And that's what you're there for, though. I mean, so it sounds like you're not just a PR publicity person, but you're also a connector, and in a lot of ways an educator, because you've been doing this for almost 20 years. I mean, you do know how it works, and you do understand that the grassroots, you've called it your work organic, right? And I'd love to hear more about what you mean by that. But that, from my perspective, that's like a grassroots, like one person at a time, or one group at a time, that truly understands the message of the particular person that you're focusing the attention on. And then folks they create networks and communities from there. So yes, please let us know what you mean by organic PR.
So organic PR is not pay-per-play. It's not a sponsored article. And I think that, I mean, of course, it is very competitive and it does become challenging. But if you have the right type of clients and you have the right type of story, it's not a hard sell. It's just that the process takes time, right? So even if you get interviewed now, but the article might only come out in 2 months' time or a month's time, if it's print. If it's online, obviously it's a different scenario. So I've never had to pay for an article or whatever. And I think what a lot of people are realizing now is that pay-per-play and the oversaturation of so much information is just not having the clout and the impact that it should have. And so that's what I mean by organic, is there's no, I'm not paying to have somebody featured in a magazine or featured on a podcast or whatever, So that's really the objective behind it. And also, you talked about the education part, like, that is one of the things, is like, once you've done the work and you've put the articles out, or you've put the podcast or the interviews out, then, you have to, the individual themselves also has to be proactive and utilize that for their own marketing.
Yes.
Because we can only take it to a point, but I say to people, use the logos, put the logos on your presentations, or take a screenshot or a clip of the article, or make a carousel. Like I've had a couple of carousels made, to show people, oh, this is what we did for this particular person. So I also think that it's really about making it about the person that you're interviewing or whatever. And I do say to people, yes, you can try it for 1 month and that's great. But, if you really want to garner momentum, you should really consistently do it for 2 to 3 months. And it is a long-term investment. That's just the reality.
Yes.
Because again, people are like on social media, there's so much information. You don't really know who's being authentic in what they're doing. So
in listening to the words that you use and the way in which you circle back to authenticity, I'm hearing the words authenticity a lot. I'm hearing the words integrity. And so, if I were to say it back, please let me know if I'm on the right track. But success to you is your ability within yourself to show up from an integral place and offer that other people's personal stories from an integral place.
Yes.
So you're assisting folks in that integrity, and it may be organic, but it's from more of a place of sustainability, and that's important to you. That's what your burning desire is to, if you're going to do this work, this is the way you must do it. You're not going to do it.
100%, because even if you look at the way AI is impacting things, a lot of publications and that are not, they will not accept articles done by AI, and that's fair, because then it's not your work, it's not the journalist's work, so it's important that you keep that, you come back to that point all the time of being, keeping it real, keeping it truthful, whether that's a Q&A, whether that's the journalist writing it or whatever. And also making sure that whichever platform you're utilizing or you're being interviewed on, that you are, I say to people this, that you have to utilize the platform. Do not be used by the platform. Because I've always come in with the angle and the position that, you really have to be, you really have to look at you have to come in from the perspective of, I'm going to use this platform for the betterment of something, and not because I want to be seen on the cover of a magazine. I mean, sure, like that's great. Like, I'm not disputing that. But again, it's like, what is the individual's motive?
That's right.
Because if you're not motivated in the right way, then it is going to come across as narcissistic or, self-promotional. Whereas my objective is just creating awareness around the person, around the story, and then leveraging that. And whether that's in your local market, whether that's in international market, which you can then leverage back to your own market, it all helps.
And when a person is being authentic and vulnerable, we very much know this, they're coming from a place of the heart and the heart coherence of, we absolutely need our cognitive, we need our ego, we need our brain, but we're supposed to start with the heart first and cohere from the heart to the head and have a coherence between the two. And the story, the humanness of that perpetuates and gives permission for other folks to be vulnerable, to be open, to be true, right? To be authentic, to be integral. So yes, so you work what you suggest to others, which is powerful. And
also I say to people, because I've had instances where, for example, at the time I was working with the top female engineer at Tesla, right? And then she's obviously moved on from that, and she's a mom now. But my point to that is that I'd picked up some magazine, or I'd picked up something, and I'd seen an article on her, and I was fascinated, because again, for me, it's not about male versus female. Like, I'm not really interested in that, because I think we're so polarized and so divided as it stands now. So for me, I feel like So I was interested, and then I found a way to get hold of her, because at the time she wasn't really on social media. So I really had to go in and around, but I've got sort of a PI, little investigator mind.
PI.
Yeah. And so I do find ways, and and I ended up doing some work for her, and obviously several other people at the time. And also I think what I appreciate about working with people of that standard or that caliber is that they would credit me, and not for the articles or whatever, but just for the time and the work. And that's sort of a given, but it's not always obvious to everybody, right?
Mhm.
So you really, again, have to go back to educating people, post it, tag the person, because they have an audience that I don't know. I have an audience that they don't know. Like, it's all interconnected, right?
Yes, yes. So if people were interested in working with you, if they wanted to connect and talk with you, I know in my experience, when we first talked, it was very much like this, very much like a conversation. We weren't
Yes.
looking at the time, but we had a conversation. You got to know a little bit more about what's important to me. I got to know about what's important to you, and then you guided me and have been guiding and helping me ever since. And so if someone is interested in even just to ask you questions, is this the right fit for me? What would be my next step? I've never worked with PR before, or I've worked with PR, but I want to do it differently. Is there a way that's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, well, I mean, people could either contact me via LinkedIn, or they can contact me via email, which is info@talentfinders.com.
Talent Finders. I love that
Yeah.
name. That's amazing, because it's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
You find talent and you help the world know they are out there.
Yes, exactly. And then I'm on Instagram as well, which the Instagram handle is @talentfinderslive.
Okay.
Or at my name, which is they've actually, I don't know, when I registered it, I guess they've put my surname before my first name, but it's Kerrin Black, but they put it as Black Kerrin. So people can reach out on Instagram, LinkedIn, and email, I guess, and then Facebook as well. But very few people contact via Facebook. So, but I am there if people want to reach out.
Yeah, and before we go, I'd love for you to give us a sense of what in relationship you at the very beginning of this conversation you talked about how you ran a nonprofit, and I don't know a lot about that story, but what I do understand is that it was what felt right, where and what felt right for you to put your energy and your heart into at the time. It just kind of happened, right? And so is that part of your definition of success too, is following your intuition, following your heart?
Yeah, 100%. I think in that instance, because I had personally known people that were affected, and it's like, I don't know how it is with the health system in Canada, but like, I know US and South Africa have, it's not the similar, but it's like, if you don't have medical insurance, you have to go to, government hospitals. And I'm speaking specifically or pertaining to South Africa at this point.
Okay.
But the challenge is that certain drugs, even though it's like FDA approved or whatever, in South Africa at the time, I mean, I don't know, I think it's probably still the same, but it would take like 8 years for the medical council to approve that to get in. And then it's like, you still don't know if the medical insurance company is going to pay for it. Became very expensive.
And this is for cancer patients, correct?
Yeah, cancer patients. And so, it was interesting because a lot of the people and a lot of the patients that I was trying to help were all lymphoma-based cancers. And I'll never forget. I mean, there was a little boy, who needed this drug, but it had horrendous side effects by a specific pharmaceutical company. I won't mention names, but and they just made it impossible for people. In the end, he passed away, like so many of them actually did, because they couldn't access the drug. And again, there was no guarantee that they were going to survive it, even if they had taken the drug. So, I was deeply passionate about it because I saw the financial implications to families that had been through this and didn't, have R500,000 lying around to pay, that's a lot of money in rands, especially as a South African. So, didn't have the resources or the funds to be able to afford those drugs. So many of those cancer patients died. But I think for me, what really kind of touched me was that just the resilience and the inspiration of a lot of these patients, was just amazing. I mean, I'll never forget these two instances, just a brief story, but the one was a young boy. I think he was about 4 or 5, and he was playing outside, and he said to his aunt, he went up to his aunt, and he said, "I don't want you to worry. I'm going to heaven." Like, I mean, how does a 5-year-old know this? And she just sat there and she didn't know, and it was interesting because it was when I'd gone into like corporate, for the CSI divisions to try and see if there was a way that they could get involved, or, I had jewelry designed, so maybe they could use it as corporate gifts and a percentage could go. So I was really like utilizing the resources that I had. And then the second one was a 19-year-old girl. I mean, she was super inspiring. Her name was Ndalu, and she really fought, to the end. But her dream was, she was 19, she wanted to be a journalist, and then I just happened to get a call from her mom saying, that one of the tumors had perforated and they had to take her to hospital. And it was a whole process. And I was there and I was trying to help her. I had some people come in that had special skin products because her skin had literally cracked like wallpaper because of the treatment that she was enduring. Anyway, later that day after I left, she had said to her mom, "I'm thirsty." And her mom took off the mask, gave her, the straw, whatever. And then she just said to her mom, "I don't know if I can do this anymore." And she closed her eyes and died. And like no one could console themselves. It was like, because the impact that girl had was just unbelievable. And like I drove home and I couldn't say anything, so it's, these are the things. I mean, not a lot of people know that's, I was involved in trying to help these people and these individuals. And, you get asked to speak at like funerals I mean, it's just, for me, part of doing what I did was to give back, because I could see the financial implications and impact. And it used to make me so angry because
you were hot.
Down. I mean, we tried to talk to big pharma, forget about it. So, but there were a lot of lessons in it. And, I did actually get asked on multiple occasions. I actually remember I submitted something at the time to the Oprah magazine, and I'd forgotten about it or whatever. And they were like, if you're helping someone or you have a charity. So it was funny because I was driving and this lady calls me and she goes, "Oh no, it wasn't. I was in another, I was staying in another house at the time. This lady called me and she's like, 'Oh, you've been shortlisted for the story.'" So I was like, okay, amazing. I'm grateful for the fact that I've been shortlisted. And then I kind of forgot about it. 2 days later, I'm driving and I just pick up the phone, and I've got all these people from O Magazine in South Africa like screaming in the background saying you've won 10,000 Rand for your charity and you're going to feature in the October edition of Oprah Magazine. And again, I didn't do it because I wasn't doing
That's
it for me.
incredible, Kerrin. Wow.
And I was like, I nearly crashed the car because I was like, is this the
You should have been and I can, your whole demeanor, I mean, you're wonderful when you talk about your PR, but when you mix the PR with these stories of, you're telling their story, your PR for these lovely children, your PR for the need, the cause, your whole being shifts when you talk about it. So that's what we're looking for with Hot for Success, is that's you having that from within, right? That impetus.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a brief story on that as well, like, which was really like nothing I expected. But you know, when you talk about things being exactly in alignment, right? So there was somebody that was going to Necker Island, to Richard Branson's island, or whatever, shack in the bush, whatever you want to call it. and so this guy said he wanted, I'd met him through a networking thing, him and his wife, and then they were like, I want to do something for charity. So I actually connected with them and I said, look, I love you guys to try and help raise awareness, see if there's a way we can raise money or something. So he was actually going to swim around Necker Island. Anyway, long story short, I had gone with a very good friend of mine, and we had gone to a travel expo. And I don't know how I knew, but I just knew, like, and I said to my friend at the time, I said, look, we have to get hold of the brand marketing manager for Virgin, because it made sense, right? It was Richard Branson. So we actually ended up going to the counter, because they obviously had KLM, they had all the different airlines. It was a travel show. And then I said to my friend, I said, look, this is the person we need to speak to. And she's like, well, no, we just need to get a number. I said, no, that's the person we need to speak to. I don't know how I knew. And it was like, if we had gone there even 2 minutes later, we would not have met her. And she was like, okay, send us a proposal. We worked 2 full days, didn't sleep, did this proposal. And then about 3 days later, once the proposal was submitted, we got 4 airline tickets sponsored by Virgin. And again, it wasn't we could never talk about it as a sponsorship. It would always be like, our preferred choice of airline is Virgin Atlantic, which is a smart way of doing it.
Yes.
So they, there ended up only being 2 of us going, because the other person couldn't go because the kid was sick or whatever. But, it was just phenomenal, because we arrived at the airport, and then we obviously boarded the plane, and then they're like, oh, just come over here or whatever. So the first leg from Johannesburg to London was premium economy, and then they gave us a little glass of champagne or whatever. So anyway, we land in London, and then the girl that I was traveling with, because she was going to meet her husband at Necker Island, and there was the issue with the visa situation, so she had to go straight on. But anyway, I'm checking in to go to New York, and then this bell goes off, and I'm like, oh my God, am I in trouble, whatever? And they're like, no, Miss Black, you've been upgraded to upper class. It's the only time. It was like Christmas.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
Yes.
It was unbelievable.
Your heart and your hard work and your dedication. Oh my goodness, I love the stories. And that's the thing. It's the story, right? It's the story behind the woman who tells everybody's story. It's so good. Yeah.
And then that same month, because it was around October or something, and then that same month, I had been featured in Fast Company in South Africa. It's the same one as America, but just they have the license for South Africa, to talk on talent finders and what I was trying to do there. But again, I was asked to be featured. I didn't go there saying, can I be featured? Because that never bodes well with the magazines,
Right.
So, yeah. So I had 2 features in like October or November or whatever of 2010, I think it was. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So before we go, because I know I've already said that once, but there's always so much that I want to ask you about and hear your stories. But before we go, what's coming up in the next month or so for you? Anything that we need to know about that we can check in on, or is it on your website? I think you said something about your website being under construction or something.
Yeah, so I'm working on getting talentfinders.com website. I'm working on getting that redeveloped. So yeah, so that is an online talent community that connects, promotes, and educates talent. So I'm busy working, with some people on that.
Awesome.
And yeah, and then, just, if people are interested, I do have a starter package for people who would
Okay.
be interested in PR, because I think it's important, people, you can't really do one without the other. You
Right.
have to do things
You have to get out
concurrently. Yeah,
there. People have to know you. It's not what your story is that people need to know your story. They need to know you exist. They need to know who you are and make those connections. So
exactly.
and you have the connections that people would never even think of. So it's
Yeah,
smart.
and also it's about the relationships, because it's easier for someone else to sell you than it is for you to sell yourself. And I can speak to that for myself. It's easier if somebody talks about what I'm doing or
Yes.
through their own experience, rather than me trying to convince. Because actually, I had a conversation with someone, I think it was yesterday, actually, was saying, we shouldn't be in the business of convincing people. It's like you either understand it or you don't. Like,
Right. Or it's the right time or it's not, right?
yeah,
Sometimes it's timing too. Is it?
yeah,
And so someone is hearing this podcast, who knows when they'll hear it? They might hear it a year from now, they might hear it in the next week or so when we get it up on our platforms. But if they hear about you even a year from now, then that's when the timing's right for them. Or they hear about you, they have a conversation, they might have to put it aside for a moment, but then they can circle back because you're there and you're ready. And it's so great that this is your worthy ideal, because we're all benefiting from you
yes.
and what you have to offer. So Kerrin, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know I ask you, what are you up to? Oh, I have all this I need. I've got this many things. And yeah, between the international travel and the swimming in the lake and the gondolas, and you're just a busy camper and you're telling stories everywhere you go. So
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing is like a point that I want to reiterate, because something that has been on my mind a lot lately is, if you just live it, you don't have to be like for me, like for example, if I post on my Instagram, right? Like I'm not doing it because I want to get 1,000 likes or I want to get approval by a gazillion people. I couldn't care less. For me, it's kind of like my own photo album, whatever, that I can reference back to and say that I had those experiences. But I'm just living it. I'm not like, oh, look at me, I'm standing here, I'm posing for this. I mean, you can kind of tell the difference between those things where people are really trying too hard to project some kind of life that I don't know is not necessarily even real, to be honest. And for me, it's just like I just want to live my life. I want to impact and change people's lives. And if I can do that to help them with their PR or through the talent finders or through building the online platform and so on, that for me is rewarding. And even when I get results for my clients, it's rewarding, right? And again,
yes.
it's not a power trip for me. I'm just like, okay, when it's like I still have it. Like
Yeah.
I can still do it.
Yes. Yes. And we really need you to keep going, please.
Yes.
Well, thank you
But
so much. I will make sure all your handles, I'll get them all from you, and then I'll make sure they're in the show notes before we put this up. So if people are watching now on a podcast or on LinkedIn, you can check out the notes from the show and you'll be able to contact Kerrin. Please do. Thank you so much, Kerrin. It's so good
Thank you, Nora. Thanks so much.
time today.
Is it stop?